The sounds that you're hearing, dear listener, are being created by a plant. I know this is not some hippie, woo-woo, new age bullshit. Well, it might be a little bit of that. But in fact, the sounds that you're hearing are being made possible through a very special device created by our guest tonight, Sam Cusumano. So sit back, relax, drop a tab or two, munch a cap, and let's dive into the world of biodata sonification.
WYT GYS!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is WYT GYS episode 20. Can you believe it?
I can. We did it. We're here. We're doing it, right?
There's a beautiful plant in the way, which I honestly have to say I kind of enjoy looking at the plant a little bit more than I enjoy looking at your. You're a beautiful man, but this is a beautiful plant.
I feel different.
So, yeah, we made it to 20, and I prepared a couple very interesting facts about the number 20. The 20th wedding anniversary, which is, in a way, this is our 20th wedding anniversary. It's not in years, but if an episode was a year, this would be our 20th wedding anniversary. And I don't know if you guys know this, but the 20th wedding anniversary is the China anniversary. And so traditionally, the husband and wife would get each other a very special piece of China. I know it's not racist to say that. I'm saying it because it's China. And I didn't get you, because I'm all about, Buy America. So I didn't get you anything, Kenny, from China. But I did get you a little bit of the coronavirus. Not sure if you've had it yet.
Corona flu.
Yeah,
I don't want that stuff. I heard it's coming back for you.
I sent you one. Do you want to read the one that I sent you, the special fact about the number 20?
Yeah, you said about according to the developmental psychologist, a person is not considered an adult until they reach the age of 20.
True.
Jesus.
Just making the deadline, boys.
So
we're hanging in there.
You're there, but in terms of the podcast, perhaps this podcast is not fully adult until we've reached episode 20. So maybe we need to clean some shit up here going forward now that this podcast is, officially an adult.
Grow up. We have to grow up.
So wait, we were breaking our podcast virginity before we got an adult?
We're adults now.
Yeah. It's okay as long as both people involved are children, it's fine. It's only if one is an adult and the other one. So we're all in this together. So it's
hopefully
fine.
Leaf doesn't watch your podcast.
He doesn't.
Okay.
No.
You'd be surprised.
Also, in the game of chess, there are 20 total legal moves that you can make at the opening of a game of chess, which is interesting.
I wish I knew about more with that.
And last but not least, the number 20 is also known as a score in Old English. Famously, Abraham Lincoln, in the beginning of his Gettysburg Address, 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. So a score also equals 20. So happy score, dudes. Score for sure.
Go Birds.
So we had go Birds, 8-1. I did have to make. I'm probably gonna have to. I do want to see you sometimes. This plant's great,
pop
but
in every so
I'll
often.
just pop in.
It would I'd like to see occasionally, not often though.
I did want to make a little Halloween confession.
Oh, what?
To you?
What happened?
I was the one that dosed your beer before our Halloween extravaganza.
Who was the culprit?
I picked up some liquid acid, and I didn't know the dosage. I figured I just wanted to try it on somebody that I trust first.
Yeah,
So
you should have puddled me. You messed up.
So
we tried to lighten up the podcast and do a new twist. I wasn't a part of it.
I
told him
good.
to stop. I was just like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Nah, man, it'll be all right."
Nah,
bud.
you laughed.
I saw Zappa, man. I saw Zappa's ghost. That was pretty cool.
If you haven't seen our Halloween episode, please go
loved it.
back one episode and watch it on YouTube or Rumble. Audio version is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else you can get your audio podcast, but the video version is always on YouTube and Rumble. Also, our latest sponsor, 1-877 Cox for Kids.
Oh boy.
TikTok just took down that video for hate speech and harassment. So it was a great company.
Closing in on you.
Recycling penises. I don't know what the problem was, but
They probably have stock.
anyway, yeah, feel free to follow us, guys, if you don't already. And if you're feeling extra generous, leave us a 5-star review, 5-star rating. And if you're feeling extra generous, go ahead and write us an actual review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. But today, we are in celebration of our 20th episode. We've been saying we're going to get guests on here for, God, at least 10 episodes for now.
Yeah, we've been trying.
We finally got
No
our
one
shit
wanted-
together.
We finally had to pay Sam to come because no one
Enough.
else was showing up.
To bring a really amazing gentleman, scholar, inventor, musician, engineer, father. What else? Mr. Sam Cusumano.
You?
All right. Thanks, guys. I'm
Thanks
so
for
glad to be
joining
here.
us.
For showing, man. I appreciate you. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. I've known Sam for a long time. I think I was in 10th grade and you were in 9th grade.
Yeah, I
we met?
even looked up to you when I was in the middle school and you were in the high school and you didn't even know.
There we go.
Now, hey, now you know. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, we've been close for a while. I'm closer to the city. He's farther into the burbs with you weirdos, but hey,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does
not
get
everyone
weird.
can come back to Bucktown successfully.
Yeah. And you've come back to Bucktown.
Well, just to visit, thank goodness.
Yeah.
What's it called? A brief hiatus to the Bucktown?
Yeah, well, I mean, we all went away for a while, and then I happened to move back, and Sam is still kicking ass outside of Philly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, glad to have been in the city for a while. We had a great heyday down there, but then, some people grow up, some people move out, some people have kids. I mean, that's pretty much the story, I think, that we all followed along, just a few years different,
Yeah.
actually making the walk through the city line.
Yeah. But you found a nice spot, like, just north of the city, so you're not in the
Yeah.
shit anymore, which I can't imagine raising kids still in the shit that we
Yeah.
were in.
Yeah,
Although it's different than we live there. It's a little more gentrified, which is great.
well, it's rough, Norm. You wouldn't recognize it. I mean, literally, the block that we were on doesn't look the same.
Yeah.
I don't go down that much. My wife's there all the time. I mean, the city's bumping. Like the art scene, things are going on. But you have to be into that. You have to be, you have to want to park in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
happy enough just to be. Now I've got a driveway.
Ooh,
Yeah.
So you have
know,
your own. Yeah.
So a little bit of isolation makes a big difference.
Well, just having
Yeah.
your own place to park. That's always a shit show everywhere.
Absolutely.
In town, city. Even when I was in D.C. this week, and it's like my friend lives right on New York Avenue, where everything's like in the morning you have to not be in front of his house. You
Oh,
got to
yeah.
move to the other side. Like I think it's from like 6:30 a.m. till 9:30. But you cannot. They'll tow you like
Yep.
because you got to let all the flow come in and then all the flow come out. So it's pretty cool. But I had a nice spot off to like the right. Like it was so wonderful. Like I just left it there until Friday, and I pulled right out front to load. It was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, DC is a serious city. Philadelphia,
Yeah,
we got things a
yeah.
little bit lower key.
Yeah. But so yeah, we brought Sam here not only because he's one of my oldest friends, but because he's a brilliant audio engineer, and he's brought some stuff with him that we're gonna get into a little bit later. But
Yeah.
Sam, I wanted to start first with just a little bit of your background. Obviously, I know everything about you. There's nothing else that you can tell me tonight that I don't already know about you. But for Joe and Kenny and for the 20 people that listen to this podcast,
22.
could you give us? Are we up to 22?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Mhm.
Just give us a little. You can go as far back or as deep as you want to go, or as shallow as you want to go. A little bit of your history with music and engineering, and how you got into this
Yeah.
this kind of world.
Well, my name is Sam Cusumano. I'm very excited to be here, and I often say I'm an engineer for the arts. I am very good with electronics. At a young age, I would take things apart to see how they work, get shocked, maybe fix it, usually break it. And as I grew, I made friends with musicians, right? The weirdest, most awkward people you can find sometimes are your best friends. And those musicians endlessly would break their musical instruments. So I was the guy that would go to the punk rock show and fix the distortion pedal that wasn't working on stage. Or I would fix the light switch in the bathroom at the punk rock show.
Right.
But these little things make all the difference.
You didn't necessarily want to have the lights on though in the bathroom at the punk show.
No.
Sometimes it was better to have the lights
Right.
off.
But I'm not going to put up with it if the switch doesn't work.
Right.
So a lot of what I do is I try to find how I can help somebody.
Right.
Use technology, use a little bit of engineering and a little bit of logic, and I've been able to build a lot of small projects with friends, with curators and artists. Professionally, I'm an IT project manager for large insurance companies, so you got to do something during the day.
Right. You gotta make
Right.
that green. Gotta make that money.
And so then for the rest of my time, well, now I've got twin sons. They're 4 years old, and that's
Yeah.
taken up most of my
Bringing more
my
good
free time.
humans into the
Scenes.
world. Joe, can you get me a little bit of volume on my mic? Yeah. Cool.
I'll turn you up a little bit. There we go.
Go ahead, Sam.
Right. So now that I'm in this whole fatherhood thing, all of the toys that I've saved over the years really have come into the fray. You know, the kids are playing with the Headmasters Transformers and stuff, and it's really powerful to see. You know, they've got my AT-AT, the full-size Millennium Falcon. These are things that were very important to me as a kid, and it's great to see my kids light up about it. They play with, I've modified a lot of children's toys over the years called circuit bending to make strange sounds. So my kids play with that. They've got the right perspective, hopefully, and they see that Daddy can fix anything. Well, arbitrarily maybe. I can fix certain things. I can take the wheel and put it back on some of their toys.
So do you still have your original Millennium Falcon?
Absolutely do. Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
much cooler than the Millennial Falcon, because that thing just that doesn't even take off the ground. That just kind of
Damn.
cries and stays on the ground. So
Screaming on the ground, pounding.
Oh yeah, but yeah. So a lot of my time now has been spent. I was building this device we're going to talk about today for the past couple years, and I'm always looking at new ideas, working with friends. People reach out to me on the internet, which is really great, with some problem they have or some installation they're trying to do. And if I'm lucky, I can help people out and actually make something light up, make little weird sounds, or have interactive public displays. I mean, that's what people want. They want to go somewhere and feel like they're interacting with their environment. And you can go a lot of places and watch a video projected on the wall or listen to the sounds that are there. But, there's something like the Franklin Institute where everything they have, which is all brand new right now, by the way, is all interactive. You can touch it, you can feel it. And this is the kind of technology that I'm super into. And then recently I've been trying to teach, if I could find time, basic electronics to teach artists and students how you can use a lot of the open source available maker components now and make a light flash, make a lightsaber, make a huge armature that moves around. You can really do anything if you have the idea. And now we really have sharing of information to give the tools to people that actually want to play with them.
Now, do you make YouTube videos about
I do. Well, I have. I've got Electricity for Progress is my project that I do, and so I've got a YouTube channel, Electricity for Progress, that has a couple videos. Most of them are organized based on specific things that I've been working on. Someone would have a device that I built for them, and I make a how-to video, and then I've got lots of videos about biodata sonification, what we're going to talk about here today.
So cool.
Yeah,
Wow,
and so
man, my
maybe we
head's
should
spun.
maybe we should go ahead and jump right into this whole idea of biodata sonification. So do you want to give us a little background on?
Yeah.
I know there were some weird Italians in the 70s. They were kind of playing around with that idea, and it kind of got lost for a little while. And the Secret Life of Plants
Stevie
was
Wonder.
definitely had a part of that. Yeah.
Well, so biodata sonification is the process of using sensors on an organic system, for instance, a plant or a person, and extracting information about changes in that system. That's biodata. So then sonification is taking that data and mapping it to certain tones or notes to use sound in order to represent the data. And you might say, well, why would someone bother doing that? Can't I just look at numbers on a piece of paper, on a spreadsheet, or on a screen? And if you're taking data samples extremely fast, thousands of times per second, your eyes, we have human limitations, right? We're not going to be able to see everything going past. So I use sound. We have these great binaural receptors, 2 ears, that can hear multiple frequencies at the same time, very intense. And then as an electronic musician myself, I'm always interested in using and creating sounds that elicit a certain emotional response or represent some state. And so here I'm trying to say, well, let's take this biodata from plants, translate it into notes, and then allow a musician to kind of curate the sound that that plant makes. Because let me call out right away, plants don't make sounds on their own. No.
Wait, what?
Some people might say that they do. Well, if you put ultrasonic microphones out, very recently there was a study that you can hear like clicking and popping that come from plants as they transpire gases and things like that. But our ears don't hear that. Right? One of the tricks with biodata sonification is that our human senses are incredibly limited. We have to be wooed by some bright light or some intriguing sound. And without that, you might think a plant's just sitting there doing nothing, where very far from the sort. It's metabolizing. It's doing all sorts of things. We just don't have the guts to perceive it.
Right. So, Joe, do you want to fade in some of track 5 and 6?
Yeah, we will bring that up for you. Let me just bring this down.
Which is coming from
So, yeah.
this guy right here.
So the sounds you are hearing are being produced in real time by these plants that we have. We have a snake plant that is connected with 2 electrodes to a small box that I have on the table, and that box contains a galvanometer, a conductivity meter. And as I detect electrical conductivity in the plant, musical notes are being produced based on changes. So only when there is a change will a music note be produced. So as Norman touches the plant, you can immediately hear a change in the sonal structure because our bodies will interfere and interface with the plant. As well, the plant may react directly to your touch or your presence.
Do you guys, are you aware of the other name for this plant? You can keep it going, Joe. Besides the snake plant?
No, it's probably some Latin.
It's
name.
well, I also
Latin.
actually prefer the other name, which is the mother-in-law's tongue plant.
Oh.
And I have to believe that
I don't have one.
whoever named that probably did not have the best relationship with his mother-in-law. But
Probably not.
yeah,
The snake's tongue's sharp, right?
but
So
go ahead, Sam.
So these snake plants, they're very fleshy plants, and similar to a succulent. So we also have an aloe plant down there. These large fleshy bodies are very easy to use with my biodata system because they're highly electrically conductive. Similar to human skin, right? The largest organ of our body wrapped around us. We have changes in electrical conductivity when you blush or when you have blood flow changes.
And Sam, just to jump in for
Yeah.
people who may not quite understand, can you explain how the difference in conductivity happens?
Sure. Well, so I am not a biologist or a botanist, but I've been studying this for quite a while. There are many different biological processes that could go on in a plant that would change electrical conductivity. Most commonly, from my understanding, it's called stomatic activity. There are small openings on the tops or bottoms of leaves which allow water, gases, and a variety of things to move in and out. Changes of pressure, changes of temperature. And it's kind of like the plant breathing. And as these stomae open and close, it's going to change the electrical conductivity across the surface of the leaf. So we're measuring electrical admittance across a leaf, and as those stomae have activity, we're going to get changes. And these stomae are very small. These are small cellular objects. They're moving and changing thousands of times per second, way faster than a human would normally perceive. But you just look at the plant. It's not doing anything, right? It's just sitting there. But it's us who can't really tell. We can't really see these small changes happening.
But in general, could you say the higher the water content of a leaf, the greater the conductivity?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. So it's based on the water content, but it's also based on the structure of the plant itself, what it's trying to allow the electrical conductivity to flow. If you have a plant that's very dry, then you'll obviously start off with a lower conductivity. If you have something like a tree where they're waxy, thinner leaves, it's a much lower conductivity. So my device isn't universal across all plants because it's kind of rude to say that all plants are the same. If it's green and sitting there, it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Totally
All plants
different.
matter, though. Yep.
Totally different organisms, totally different structures. And through study, through practice of using this device and other things, we learn about these plants. But many people will try, like do a live performance and say, "Oh, I'll just throw these electrodes onto a tree." You have to test everything before you really go do it live because it's going to have a different set of parameters. It might not pick up as well and might not be as engaging for the audience, which is challenging. People want something that's playing
want it
music
now.
Yeah, they want something now. They
like
want something that
30
feels
minutes.
good. But that's not necessarily what this device always does.
Now, would you say like generally like the plants like an aloe plant, they're all generally similar? Now I can understand like some are healthy, some are not healthy, depending on what state they're in. It may sound a little bit different, but like generally you're like, oh, all right, that plant I know I can get a decent output from.
That's a great question, Joe. Yeah, there are certain plants that have a much more regular, much more consistent output, like a snake plant. This is why we used a snake plant tonight, or a succulent like an aloe plant. There's some ruddy bushes like a blueberry. You wouldn't expect it. Very active. And I was surprised when I tried it, just kind of going around trying all the plants in the yard. But I wouldn't say that a certain variety or genus of plant has a specific pattern to it. It's really hard because as humans, we want to perceive something quickly. You might listen to the music or the sounds for a few minutes, but it takes more than a few hours. It takes days of this biodata to really see what a full cycle of electrical conductivity might occur on a certain plant. So, Joe, to your question, yes, plants will have very similar profiles, but over a very long period of time from our normal, 5-minute, 3.5-minute song perspective, you'd really have to study for a long duration.
Mm-hmm.
And some have much better conductivity than others.
What about like some plants are fast growing versus some plants take a very long time to grow? I wonder if that has anything with the.
I've done some experiments with morning glories outside, which are very fast growing, very high motion plants, and they have huge amounts of bioactivity all the time, all through the night. I've done some work with petunias, smaller flowering plants, and they had much lower activity during the evening, based on really seems like more temperature. But
the sun with the light, does light affect all these
obviously
elements?
plants are completely covered in photosensors, right? So we have these two eyes in front of our face, so we see certain frequencies of light. Plants, their entire physiological structure is covered in photosensors, so they're detecting colors that we cannot see and all sorts of activity that's going on around them. In a lot of ways, like using a sensor like this and attaching it to a plant, we could potentially detect things that are happening in the environment that you can't see, like colors of light. Even when the sun, is setting, or the sun is on the far side of the earth, there's no light on these plants, but they're able to pick things up that we might ignore. And studying the plants over the time when there is no light, I find being very interesting. I was asked to do a small performance at the back bar at the Trocadero quite a few years ago, back when people smoked in the bars and stuff like that.
The good old days.
Oh yeah, so it's like me and a snake plant at 11:15 at night in the back bar of the Smoky Trocadero, and I plugged everything in, and the plant made no sound at all, didn't do anything. And the buddy I was with was a little distraught, and so we faked it. We made it work.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, we all went back to my house.
Are you faking it now?
No, actually, right now this is
Okay,
all
good.
real. Yeah,
All right, good.
it's a fair question. I have no laptop here. We went back to my house and plugged the plant in, same plant, and of course it was rocking all night. We had a really great time. Environment is
Yeah,
a
it was
big
too
factor.
heavy, the toxicity.
Plants don't like cigarette smoke? Is that what
Well, I think people don't like cigarette smoke. At least I didn't, and the plant might not have liked me being around it. It's we always try to assign these reasons, these cognitive, ego-reflective reasons that a plant is doing something. And frankly, I don't think we have any conception right? We have these small data points that can be used to find change.
Well, yeah, I think there would probably be some people would feel the need to, or they would want to anthropomorphize what's
Yeah,
going on
absolutely.
with this plant, right? To put it into human context, like, oh,
Mhm.
is this plant actually making quote unquote music that we can perceive as a human, or are we just, which is what I think you're
Yes.
readily admitting, not that you're trying to keep anything secret, but you're saying we're translating things that are going on inside the plant into a musical language that humans can perceive and understand. So it's not, and I think there's probably some divide, and I don't know because you're obviously more involved in this world than I am because I'm not really involved in it at all. But I would imagine there would be some
Super dialed
people who would want to go towards the side of these plants are actually making this music, and you're just facilitating our ability to be able to perceive it. But I think you would probably agree that, and I think you just said, that plants are not making music. What you're doing is interpreting data
Absolutely.
that they're creating and translating it into music. Like you could
Yes.
probably, if you were more of a visual artist, maybe you could have some kind of visual component to this where instead of translating this into notes on a musical scale, you are actually translating it into colors or shapes or something. And
That would be a good
Yeah.
combination.
Right.
I like that.
Exactly, and these are the types of visualization using this data is. I don't want to say it's not hard because everything's challenging, but
Nothing good
it's
comes
very
easy.
accessible.
yeah.
But it's up to the artist who chooses the sound, like these little sounds that we're hearing in the background now. We intentionally chose a sound that sounded a little spacey and creepy, and
Right.
I like it.
but it's
So and
not
that's based on the sound set that you have in the
Yes.
program that this is connected to.
correct.
Right.
Correct. The plant isn't choosing the sound.
It doesn't have to sound harmonious. You could choose a bunch of
When I started this
horrible
project, yeah.
horrible sounds, and the plant could sound like it's playing death metal, right?
Oh,
Or very-
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, you can even make the plants play really crappy rock and roll.
Yeah.
Can you have them talk to you? Like, can they like talk and like?
I've run this through a speak and spell before with a MIDI program, and it
Nice.
put out lots of great gobbledygook and garble.
Nice.
Um,
Still cool though.
Well, a lot of people they when they use this, they use the plant and the music as a focus. So one of the things, a criticism and an accolade that I've had for this device is about spiritual healing. And I always want to call out, if anyone gets spiritually healed, that is beautiful and wonderful, and I'm all about that. But this device
Is that
itself,
guaranteed?
I guarantee that I will affectionately love you for
Can I
your
get a
spiritual
certificate
healing.
of authenticity?
Sam truly wants you to be healed, but it's not that nothing that I can see that the plant is doing per se.
Yeah.
Right. It's that people are so, I don't want to say desperate because it sounds negative. We're so, we need to have connection.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. We need
this-
each other. too.
We need each other. We need someone to refer back to, and so I think a lot of people use this system, and in that moment, they're able to bounce between. Well, I'm influencing the plant. They might not realistically know how they are, but just getting that small bit of feedback
And that connection with it, you know.
shows you're not alone,
Yeah, you're not.
and you don't necessarily have
That's cool, man.
knowledge
I love it.
from it, but you have awareness.
Yeah.
And that's that like third eye ripping open portion of this device that I'm super excited about, because it brings people to ask questions about their own perception of reality, about cognition, about how any organism perceives and interacts with the world. And as people anthropomorphize and build up the plants more and more, sometimes they also have the opposite. And they start to realize that maybe we, these egoistic, individualized bodies, aren't
Amen.
so structured. Maybe we ourselves are also just like these plants, receiving information. And that dialogue is so much more significant than making music with plants.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, the biggest outcome of this project has been what people question from it. Because in the end, I always share exactly how this system works electronically. what I understand biologically. Nothing is obfuscated. Everything's open source. Many companies are producing products off of my designs, which I love. I think that's perfect. They're doing things that I can't do on my own.
Well, so let's talk about the difference here. So we
Sure.
have what we're hearing now is the snake plant running through an iPhone app
Yes.
that is creating these sounds. Joe, if you want to fade in the other track, which is Sam's modular synth here, which is now connected
To Allie Aloe.
Yeah.
Allie the
Ooh.
aloe plant.
Hi,
So
Allie.
and this will illustrate a very different set of sounds that are happening. This is not as harmonious.
No, so I've made a couple different devices. I started off with this MIDI-based device, and for those who don't know, MIDI is a digital interface for musical instruments, allowing you to play musical notes on a piano just using numbers. Over here in the little lunchbox, I have a modular synth, and some of the modules I've built myself, some of them I've purchased and assembled. And what this modular synth version does is it drives analog synthesizers using the same basic technique, but allowing the voices, rather than being digital voices, to be these analog sounds or digital samples of drums and things. In my process, I keep trying to make my devices accessible as possible to different audiences. And so this modular synthesizer is, well, at the time that I started, it was a niche market. But dare I say, there's quite a few people into modular synth now. And frankly, I couldn't keep up. The pandemic hit. I guess you guys are aware of that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to get
Early
any
season.
components. I couldn't source chips. I
Couldn't get anything.
couldn't get anything.
Couldn't get anything. You could barely get a loaf of bread or a roll of toilet paper. You know,
And-
it's all good.
And so like there was a time that there was like a hot iron. So I made a couple, I mean literally 10 of this modular
So
synth
cool.
version.
I'm like
sent
so
it to friends.
mesmerized. Like I'm like
Yeah.
completely.
You just wanna, like,
mesmerized.
sit back, right?
I'm in like, you got my head spun, man. Like I'm just so amazed.
Well, keep
Good
control.
thing. It would have been interesting if I dosed you for this episode instead of last episode.
Way
man.
better, bro. You should. Can we dose me now? Because I'm ready to go off.
Well, so
Puddle me.
be mindful of your thoughts.
Yes. Right.
The reaction that you're having, and so Norman, of course, has experienced this before with me, but the reaction that you have the first time someone sees plant music, there's so many ideas that you have, and there's a burden that those who present plant music carry, and it's about verite. If you truly represent what the plant is doing, then you sometimes don't give the audience exactly what they want. Someone who first experiences this has this deep connection, and they want to have a deep connection.
I want one of these machines. I want one now. You better.
Well,
buy
here's
me
the
one.
thing, though. You're, and I'll put this to you. I would say it's completely impossible to ever truly represent what the plant is doing because
Fair.
what anyone is doing who's using or designing any one of these interfaces is putting their own interpretation on it. You're creating the set of sounds. You're creating what the parameters are.
Yeah,
And
the
I think
algorithm
from
that
what I
runs it.
understand, you're like really highly amplifying the signals from the plant.
So not
Two.
in this. So that's
Right.
actually a good point. Some other biodata devices do just that.
There are other biodata devices.
Don't you believe it? There are multiple ways of extracting music from a plant. So there's an organization called Music of the Plants in Italy. They're not. Don't take this the wrong way. Kind of like a sexy bed and breakfast, but very
Cool.
very cool people. They have a very different method of amplifying signals and currents going through a plant and then translating it into musical notes. I use a 555 timer. It's a very simple integrated component, like the most basic thing that you use to flash an LED. And I'm measuring changes in conductivity. It's a very similar process, but a different means to get there. Hence why when they tried to summons me for using their technology, I was able to show that I wasn't.
Oh, okay. So you're doing something totally different, and they tried to. What did they try to smack you with a copyright thing?
Some lawyer from Florida reached out to me and my buddies at Data Garden when we were doing a Kickstarter for the MIDI Sprout and said, "Oh, we have a patent on plant music." And I crap you not, guys. Someone literally can have a patent from the U.S. that says patent on making music with plants, but it's a stupid thing to patent.
Yeah.
And there's not enough money in it to chase it all down.
Well, there's so many dumb things you can patent. I mean, people are attempting to patent mushroom strains right now.
Absolutely.
So it's
Amazon's patenting every single product that's out there. It's destroying the U.S. Patent Office, which is why I do not have a patent on my method, because to me, this is a circuit I got out of a Radio Shack book. I just happen to apply the electrodes to a plant.
yeah. So two things. Let's go back. Let's talk about Data Garden.
Sure, yeah.
And how this originally started, and then if you want to weave that into, and I know the answer to this, but I want you to elucidate it for everybody else. Why open source? Why not keep this locked up? Why not patent this? Why not make some money off of this? And who else is doing it in a different way, and who else is possibly gatekeeping it and trying to make money off of it? And how are you different than then? So take that however you want to take it.
Yeah,
but the history would be good to clue people in, because I think at this point people are like, yeah, this is cool, but like, where the hell did this come from? This guy just had this idea one day to like, I'm gonna plug some plants into a synthesizer and make some weird sounds. Like,
yeah. So back in the 60s and 70s, people connected plants to lie detectors, old Burdick EKG machines, galvanic conductivity meters, and simple human just meters, trying to see if there's any kind of data they could pull off of it. And back in the 70s, analog synthesizers were the other thing that you had to use, as well as radio equipment, to make sounds with it. And a lot of that technique and method was debunked as a bunch of hippies making weird music, but it was real. But nobody knew exactly what they were doing, per se. Even going back to the 50s, lie detectors were hooked up to plants. And there was there's a lot of attempt to try and prove like a reflexive cognition. People went very far with their claims, but had extremely limited means. So I, many years ago, and continue to do a lot of work with interactive electronics. I like having things that, a public interactive installation. I use apples as a form of physical interface, so people can use their hands, they can touch them. There's a lot of iconography and history around apples. And so I've made like radio-based detectors that make weird sounds, and I've used this simple lie detector circuit with apples. I was working with my friend Joe Patitucci of Data Garden many, many years ago, and he had a gig at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And he kind of spun the idea of making music with plants. And so he contacted me, and he's like, Sam, I got this great idea, making music with plants. Can you do that? And so I thought about it for a second. I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, it's probably isn't any different than the other biological music that I'm currently doing with these apples. And so I had a lot of design tweaks that I did, and I pulled together a device that we used. We had 4 plants as a quartet at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and it was absolutely incredible. People's minds were blown. It worked. The fact that these plants were there and there was real music happening as people walked into and moved throughout the space, there was obvious changes. And if you touch the plant's leaf, you're going to make a difference. And so everyone was touching the plant's leaves and stuff. It was a really beautiful installation. And following that event, working with Data Garden, we said, well, let's try to make a product. Might as well. So we did a Kickstarter. And this was a couple years ago. So for those who don't know, Kickstarter used to be a way to start businesses and find funding. It wasn't about promising a product or getting pre-sales. It was about getting investment and interest and using Kickstarter as like an advertisement platform.
And just for anybody younger than us, when old guys like us say a couple years ago, that means at least 10 years ago.
Yeah, easy. 15. Yeah, I'm bad like that.
Probably more like 15.
Feels like yesterday. Jesus, what happened?
So we had a successful Kickstarter, which at the time was a thing to say that you actually got funded.
Big deal.
We had, I think, 300 devices that we sold. which was great. The price was rather high, but it was all about that invest in the company.
Were those the ones that were in the cardboard enclosure? Were they?
So we ran out of money, right?
Yeah.
Very quick in the process. And I said, well, let's design something that's not a throwaway plastic case. Because we wanted to make something that was not just trash.
Right.
And then B, because it's ridiculously cheap to get cardboard that's cut and printed. So we had cardboard enclosures for these simple biodata devices.
So instead of this,
Yeah, and so now
Right.
I've been 3D printing the enclosures. Now, nobody liked the cardboard for usage. It was just a great reflexive point and
Yeah.
easy to replace. But so once those 300 devices, which I made, we had some manufactured. I had to redo stuff. They all went out the door. People really enjoyed the process, and there was a lot of interest in doing like more runs, putting out more information, doing another product. But just as we were going live, I realized that my passion is for really education and sharing. And I wanted to show people, I wanted to give users the critical knowledge that they could use to evaluate what this thing does. Because I didn't want someone to say, oh, Sam says it works, or Sam makes this. It's not me. It's a device, and it might do something for you. So I open sourced my designs. Both to my accolade and to my folly, I think. By open sourcing, immediately people all around the world started making these. Now, niche group of people, engineers that could handle it, people that could spin up a board. But these were the people that I'm all about. Like, try to make something.
You tried.
And a lot of friends were made through that process, through the internet, reaching out to me, asking questions on GitHub or on my YouTube channel. Very quickly, though, knockoffs were made, and people were selling, modern day Reverb, eBay, Etsy, all that crap. Very many devices were put out, but of course, I am not slighted by that. I'm honored. I feel like I'm making a guitar, right? And anyone can make that guitar once it's designed. And then, of course, very quickly, I realized that my interests. I'm a corporate professional. I'm a family man. I wasn't able just to devote all of my time to this kind of a niche project. And working with Data Garden, my friends, was really great. They were very interested in making it hyper accessible to people, and in some ways over prettying the sounds, kind of masking some of the things that I felt were beautiful, like the arrhythmic nature, the achromatic nature, where there is no scale, there is no pattern.
But they weren't interested in open sourcing the designs, were they?
Being an
Wasn't
engineer,
that more of your
I kind of saved the project by open sourcing it, because no commercial organization is going to want you just to publish the keys to the castle, because a dozen other companies could spin them up, reducing your market share. And this is, again, not a huge market for the device, and especially if you're selling it as a total novelty musical device. Like, if there's no data aspect, if there's no student or scientific study aspect, the value is just for musicians, for weirdos, or for consumers, just to have something basic. So Data Garden really has gone down the consumer route, which power to them. I think that their sound sets are like a bit glossed over, and there's of course a paywall, so you buy up and everything, but that's everyone's market. I just knew that wasn't my passion to like make a paywalled app. So I have my device that's sitting right here compared against a Data Garden Plant Wave or any number of other devices that are out there. It's the exact same thing with just a slightly different bit of software sitting on top of it. The algorithm that measures the different conductivity and makes the choice of notes is almost the same. There's a company called Instruo that makes modular synthesizer components. They have a unit called the Scion, which is beautiful. It's got this like electronic tree on it, and it makes plant music, and they've cornered the market on modular synth. So even me making this device here in the modular is kind of mooted based off this other high quality, really nice, good sounding device. They're not open source though. So no one can check what it's doing with the data.
Yeah. So you've sold completed kits.
Yeah.
You've sold self-assembled kits where people
Yeah.
can get all the components and put them together. And then
Mhm.
you've also, I think you've had a pretty active message board on Electricity for Progress where people, in the true sense of being open source, where people can share
Mhm.
ideas and tweaks and
Yep.
things like that. So
Yeah, code's been shared. Design changes have been shared by people. One of the engineers who I was working with kind of not cornered, but helped with the European market for a number of years, just cloning my device, made some great updates, and shared his code. In the end, he was the engineer that worked with Data Garden. So, like, it's a small group of people, I'll
Yeah.
say, that have been doing all this. But the difference between open sourcing and having a commercial product often is if you are trying to avoid people knowing how something works, if you're trying to create like a mysticism or have a corporate secret. I have, of course, no secrets, and a part of the whole project for me was showing what's happening. I don't want to tell what's happening. I want to show people. And that's why I also don't have sounds that are just coming out of the device. The number one request is, can you just make it make sounds? And I
Yeah.
understand why someone would want that. I'm not super interested in that myself, and this is where other organizations come in, that where Data Garden can swoop in. They have their pretty sound sets. People meditate. They spiritually heal. You know, they do all kinds of great things, and that's cool. But dare I say, it's very different from what many students want, and the biologists and botanists that contact me are always desperate for like raw data, which excites me, and I of course can share that with them. It's kind of like plug USB into my device, and it just kicks out the raw data. And that's, I think, the difference between some of the other commercial products. They wrap it up in a plastic box, or they put an app in front of it, and
Sure.
like a $3.99 a month paywall, and then you can listen to other plants play, and that's great. But it's just a
right, other people are trying to make it look pretty and trying to make a slick product, whereas you're kind of offering people more of the bare bones
The thing
back
in
end
itself.
of the thing, and then leaving that open to. I think your product is going to appeal to more to people who actually have a little more of a creative drive and are like, oh, I can take this tool and do something else with it instead of taking this pre-packaged thing that's already set and ready to go and done and 100% finished and just plug it into an amplifier and say, like, now
This-
my plant's making some trippy music. How
this
about
is
this?
the sound of the plant, and that's often
Whereas, like, you're like, no, you need to take the extra step. You need to take what I'm making, and now you actually have to do something else. You have to add something to it
absolutely
instead of just having, like, you're not selling a fully cooked pizza.
fair.
You're selling some really nice dough, for sure. But you might need to make your own sauce, and you might need to grade your own cheese. I'm not saying you have to make your own cheese.
Yep, fair.
You
enough.
need to find some nice cheese that you can grate and apply it on top of the sauce. And
Dumb down the science behind it.
I
It
kinda
makes
like that
sense.
too. I like that it's like a community-based thing where it's like a lot of people are just like involved for just like just trying to figure it out. Like I think that's really cool. I'm digging
Yeah.
on all of it. The idea, like, just the idea of like other people just wanting to find that same thing, you know, like
yeah,
grow with your plant. You know what I mean? Like when you can like grow and have music. I think it's just interesting and cool. I don't think I've ever been around anything like this.
you ready to put these on you? Because they don't have to be
Do
on
I
a
have
plant.
to put them right
They
on
can-
my niplets?
I mean,
Well,
we
it depends on how hairy they are.
Oh shit! I got
so-
some serious areolas. I'm
Yeah,
done.
I got some
Yeah,
duct tape.
I'm
We
done.
can fix
You're
that.
gonna give my titties a Brazilian? What's going on? Like, what are you talking about?
So these are sticky electrodes. If you're familiar with TENS, electrodermal stimulation, it's a beauty product also used for muscular
Therapy.
therapies.
I've used
Yeah.
them many times when I have back spasms.
Absolutely.
I got a TENS machine upstairs.
I had the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the exact same thing as a TENS electrodes, but instead of kind of electrocuting the plant, well, we're sending a very
little bit,
small
right?
current
Yeah.
through microamperes, very small current, and whatever the plant emits through the one electrode is received on the second electrode and comes back through the system. So
You
it's
gotta have a screaming one. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you should have them where they're screaming because you got.
Well, that's what it'd be if you hooked it up while I was in the middle of a back spasm.
Oh,
You would
yeah.
just hear.
Have
It's
you
cool.
have you ever like gotten reached out to by like professors and like schools?
Well, so I'll say the most professional body that's reached out to me recently was the Blue Man Group.
Really?
Oh
And-
shit!
And so, so you're asking me about professors and scientists. These are some seriously brilliant engineers and comedians and performance artists,
And very blue.
and very blue. Yeah. So I had an outreach from the Blue Man Group. They have an entire plant music feature song in their latest performance round that they're doing worldwide. They used my open source designs. I, of course, immediately, as I overoffer, said, "Oh, I'll design something for you. I'll do anything." And what I got back was, "No, I already did it."
Wow.
And so if you search Blue Man Group plant music, it's pretty cool.
Cool.
And they're doing so many neat things. But to answer your question even more honestly, yes, there's many biologists and professors that reach out to me. I'll say every week, one student from somewhere around the world, and not only the United States, very, very wide a breadth of people that reach out to me.
If I would have known that ahead of time, we definitely would have done a little Blue Man Group plant
Oh, that would have
music
been great.
skit here that we
I
could
regret
splice
not
into
telling
the
you.
episodes.
That would have been. I've been willing to wear makeup for that.
I'm blue every day.
But yeah, so there's lots of people that are actually trying to do stuff with this, and so like I've recently stopped my production, right, of this device because I was building these by hand, and it as a great passion and a lot of fun, but every night and weekend was spent with me soldering and stuff. So I probably built 300 of these in the past year or so.
How long does it take you to build one?
About 12 minutes to solder, 10 minutes to assemble. So like 30 minutes, but 30 minutes is expensive
Yeah.
for a product. And then to have to package and ship. Most of my orders became international, and international shipping is really brutal if you don't know.
Yeah.
There's VAT and taxes. Many of these countries don't subsidize like we do in the United States, so people would be paying £80 in tax if I actually insured the package. So everybody was asking for gifts, to market as a gift, market as low value, which I'm an honest person. I
Yeah.
want to represent my business and my product as it
Yeah.
is. I want to get insurance, but not for 80 friggin' pounds on delivery. No way.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's a gift. Here you go.
So yeah, so I literally cut down on what I was doing because of a lot of that time and then just logistics. And also because I reached kind of the arc with what I was able to do. Like I've got this box, it's bulky, it's not beautiful in a lot of ways. I made this modular synth module, but it just takes so much effort to build.
Can't you fill these with helium?
Yeah, really.
I mean,
Well,
I
that's
would
why
fill
there's
it.
a lanyard on it.
Can you
so
fill it
can
with
hang
nitrous? I love nitrous.
we might. I think there's a tank behind you. Actually, reach behind. Yeah.
Hippie crack. No, I think it's cool. See, you could always just have a cool like labeling on it too, like you could have it wrapped in plants or something.
Well, so this is so
Wrapped
the
in
three things that I
plants.
need to continue this project, right? An aesthetist, someone who really has a good view of industrial design of what the product could look like. Second is manufacturer, right? Like I can't just make these myself, as we know everything's overseas. So you need a man on the street that actually is in China that's working with companies to make sure stuff is there. And then the third thing is the logistics. I mean,
That's the point. The manufacturing is the point that I think a lot of people don't consider. I was just listening to Rogan interview Elon, and he was talking about the Cybertruck and everything, and he was like, manufacturing is the one thing that people don't understand how difficult it is.
Yeah.
And Elon's point, of course, was like, there's never been a movie made about manufacturing. That's why people don't understand it. It was like, I really wish somebody would make a movie about manufacturing, and then maybe people would understand how fucking difficult it is to actually. He's like, design is one thing. Production, there's like the actual manufacturing of a product is the hardest fucking part.
Brutal. To find the right person.
Of the whole
well,
thing.
if something doesn't
Correct.
work, if
Yeah.
you get fake components. So I've received fake hardware that I've ordered because I would cheap out and use eBay or something like, I got to get 555 timers. Or during the pandemic, I've gotten, I won't say the number, quite a few fake components. And it's heartbreaking. If you spent money and time to get this stuff and then you try to put it together.
Where do they come from? Like Jersey?
Almost everything shipped from Jersey in the end, but it must have been sourced externally otherwise.
The
And it's impossible to
bricks.
tell. Even buying
What, Italy, Slovenia? Where are they coming from? Ukraine?
Russia.
Well, some of the best
Taiwan?
five timers I've had are from Russia.
Of course.
I mean, even from electronics distributors right now, getting power regulators, you get fake ones. It's a completely different time. I never would have expected this.
Who's making the fake ones?
I haven't met these people, but I'm sure that they have a beautiful and elaborate operation.
Where's the mailing address?
If I knew, we'd be there right now asking for my 35 cents back.
1313 Mockingbird Lane.
But yeah, so all of this type of device, there's much more to a product. Like I said, we started off in a Kickstarter. You have to invest so heavily in a company to be able to really make it. A lot of companies focus on their brand, which is really important to like your CEO and to your image and all this stuff. But as an engineer, none of that shit matters. You need to have solid product. You have to have tested firmware. You have to have good components that are coming from validated, vetted sources, and almost no one's interested in any of that.
Well, you're like the backbone guy. You're the back end.
I'm
guy,
definitely a back office guy. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You're doing exactly what you just said you're doing. Like you're not the front of the house guy.
Yeah.
You're not the CEO. You're not the flashy guy who's going to be on stage being like,
Oh,
"This is the new biodata picture we got here. Let's talk to this plant, ladies and gentlemen." Like that's not you.
It's a great point.
You're interested in making a quality product, making sure the shit is real and it works, and so
Does what it's supposed to
yeah.
do.
You
And if
sit-
somebody wants to be that bombastic face, it's taken me a long time to learn that.
you're the Wozniak. You're not Steve Jobs.
Yeah, and you need someone to stand in front of a crowd of people and either tell them. So I'll always tell what I see as the truth. It's always what we see as the truth. So if someone says this device will spiritually heal you, if they see that as the way, that's great. It's just not my selling point.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's really hard to market a niche device without having a little bit of, and this is where like the clavichord comes in,
New age
superstition.
woo-woo hippie bullshit.
Yeah.
The wow factor.
What people want to believe that they are influencing the plant and that they are themselves this individual that specially is making this happy sounding music. And it's a great story. And if it helps people, honest to crap, I would spend hours making that happen for someone. But it's just not what I'm interested in.
I know what you could do, Sam. You could have, with every purchase of one of your beautiful machines, you can give them a free pair of like Lululemon, like
Or a
yoga
tap or a
pants.
or a
You know
tap
what I'm
of
saying? You know
acid.
what I'm saying? Like this, with every device, you get a pair of free Lululemon with
Yeah.
somebody in it.
Yeah. I love it.
Absolutely.
If you're gonna go over the top, yeah, you might as well give out a $300
Shit.
yoga. There,
I
are there-
mean,
how much are
they're
those yoga
elite.
pants?
Oh, dude, they're
Yeah,
they're
100
ridiculous.
bucks.
more than-
It's stupid.
More than 100,
It's
right?
stupid. How,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think I was at Bill's painting one day, and like the mom was getting the kids like the Lulus, and it was like expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
If there's a market for it. I mean, so speaking of expense, that's a good segue too.
You could
Like-
have Lulus sell your machine. With every pair of Lulus,
Oh,
you
yeah.
get this beautiful device that'll make your plants like cry.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, what I would love to hear the sounds of. I mean, could you embed one of these devices in a pair of Lululemon
that
pants?
would be quite amazing.
So during a yoga class, I could actually hear
You'd hear the sounds.
what those thighs sound like
of
when
a
they're
Lulu.
like when there's those thighs
Jesus
singing to me.
Christ, I can only
I mean, a snake plant is one thing, but I want to hear some MILF thighs.
I want a pair. I want Allie and the Aloe. Lulus.
So plants and mammals have different physiological structure and have different action potentials based on what their movements are.
Nuh-uh.
So frankly, someone who's doing yoga, or let me give a better example. If I've put these electrodes on a drummer before, right, for an installation, and the excitement was, well, where are we going to put them on the drummer because they are drumming?
Right.
And so the answer was on their back.
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
Well, yeah.
I thought it was gonna be like leg, neck, and
Well,
ass or
honestly,
something.
inner thigh would have been much
That's
better
what I
from a
was
sweat
thinking.
perspective
Yeah.
and conductivity. But we put it on the guy's back.
Scrotum.
As soon as he started drumming, he starts sweating. Well, your sweat's going to make a high electrical conductivity, so the device didn't do anything. You
It's
need
too much moisture.
too much conductivity.
Oh, okay.
And so this is where, if you're using a device like this, a slightly different hardware, slightly different electrode really would make a big difference.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges also, it needs 2 electrodes. If you ever, if something unfortunate happens, you go to the hospital, you have an EKG, you'll notice it's not 2 electrodes, right?
It's a lot
There's
of
many. So you have something on your leg to have a lower gain, you have on your chest, on your back, sometimes on your head. You need to have reference points throughout your body.
Yeah.
This is the most simplified method of having electrodes on an organism.
In and out.
So if you did more
Yeah.
electrodes on all over the plant, it would just add to the symphony.
It would potentially just give a more precise, I didn't say accurate, more precise representation of what's going on.
Yeah.
Just have more reference points. But there's multiple strands that are
Right.
Mm,
involved in this particular
Now,
plant in the same
what
pot.
I see you have them on the same leaf.
Mhm.
What if you did different leaves?
So if you use different leaves on the same plant, then there's a larger distance that the electricity has to conduct through.
Communicate, yeah.
So you get actually a better reading of the body itself of the plant. I always recommend to users put it on the same leaf so it works.
Yeah, because it's closer in line. Like, because it's electric. I mean, it's essentially electric going through.
Oh yes, we're
Yeah.
electrocuting the plant,
Yeah.
but very small.
I mean, did he like
Right.
break any laws? Did he murder someone?
Small, as far as you're concerned, but could be large as far as the plant's concerned.
Absolutely.
Well, I can't even see.
Sam's
so I
out
don't
here
know what you're talking about.
electrifying.
I love it.
But yeah, what I'm wondering is, it's so, we've discovered that these plants are able to create this beautiful music, right?
I love
So
it. I'm so like
what
mesmerized.
what happens if you're a vegan and you understand now that plants have the ability to
They're
create
probably gonna poke
these
every
one-
fucking
like-
hole in every tire of his car now that he's like tasing the shit out.
I
of his
saw.
No, that's not what I'm saying. As not what he's doing, but as a vegan, how
Oh.
could you feel okay killing and ingesting plants when you understand they're capable of creating such beautiful music?
I saw a post about this. Actually,
You know what I mean?
wasn't getting it at first. Now I got it. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense now. Like, yeah, they're killing their brethren.
Like everybody, you can go out, like you can hear an animal
Yeah.
cry. Obviously, an animal will cry when you murder it and kill it before you eat
Right.
it. You have to be pretty tuned in to hear a plant cry and
I
scream
don't think
as you're
it's
murdering
really
it.
hard
So,
to like murder kale. You got to open the bag anyway.
right,
Well,
but you
where we
can't.
let the
But now,
oxygen, they're dead.
now we could be actually tapped in to it at the moment of
Mhm. Before you murder them.
slaughter.
So one of the
Picking.
experiments that I do when I do workshops usually, and I don't think we should do it here, but as I'm answering questions, someone will indelibly ask, what happens if the plants die or if it's sick or something happens? So what I do is I go over and I rip the leaf off of the plant that the electrodes are on. Right? Extremely upsetting.
You're a fucking monster.
You murderer! You
Upsetting.
murderer! Shame.
And the thing that really
If the glove fits,
The thing that always excites me is that once you rip the leaf off of the plant, the signal doesn't just stop. Because the plant, the
Still
leaf is
alive,
still
yeah.
doing its thing. It's just
Yeah.
impeded, we'll say. And it's a very, again, it can be very upsetting to the audience if done in the wrong context. But it's interesting to see that, to Norm's point, as you are eating that kale, that leaf is still metabolizing. This is one of the reasons that it's so good for you when you eat it. You're able to immediately take and process those nutrients, turn that into ATP, turn that into amino acids, which it's a far cry from trying to digest beef, which I would do willingly personally, but
delicious.
takes a lot more energy.
Also gives off a lot more energy.
And it depends on what it's been fed if it's even good to begin with. So it's always interesting when people ask, like that, does the plant scream? And that's again a little bit of an egoistic representation, a personification of the plant itself. But as someone who studied this, I would say, yeah, the plants are screaming horribly all the time.
Right, at us humans for being such assholes.
They're probably screaming. No, I mean, like, you think humans are assholes. Like, the natural world is a much greater asshole than we are.
Oh yeah, there's nothing that shows
Animals are screaming nonstop. Like, animals don't have an easy life, right?
Yeah, planet Earth
Even
is
if
not
humans
an easy
were
place for
even
life.
if humans were taken out of the equation, like, it's fucking hard to survive. on
Most
Earth.
most
Right.
species have died. right? I mean,
Right.
that's why we see all these fossils. The Earth is completely non-conducive to life. It just
Yeah.
so happened we can be this film on top of it.
Which is not. That's the one thing. I don't. I'm not compelled to believe in this idea that losing species is necessarily a good thing. I don't understand how you apply a qualitative judgment to that, right? It may be just that the planet is becoming more efficient, right? The planet is working towards a more efficient system, and some of these
We don't need you no more.
superfluous
Yeah, we
organisms.
don't need you
That's
no
what I'm
more.
saying.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need
Yeah.
the whole, the old mantra of diversity is our strength, and I'm not applying that to human beings. Obviously, I'm applying it to
You
the
better
greater,
not.
the greater
better
planet
not.
on the whole. Perhaps we don't need 12 different types of mosquitoes. Perhaps we don't need all. Perhaps the planet is paring itself down, becoming more efficient in order to run more effectively and more essentially.
You look at Galapagos, right? All those isolate. There was many species, highly diversified for themselves. But if you zoom out, it's a microcosm. It's a niche. No predators, no cats.
Right.
That's the only reason these birds could survive. But as soon as you have a huge variety, invasive plants, invasive pests. I mean,
Yeah.
And that's why we're all killing spotted lanternflies, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. And that's what I think about as we work towards, as AI becomes more entwined in society. And I think one way you could look at AI is maybe working towards this kind of universal consciousness and the idea of a universal truth, which is kind of in direct contrast between kind of what's going on right now, which stems out of postmodernism, which is the idea of there is no such thing as an objective truth. There's only subjective truth. So if I believe I am this thing, I am that thing, and you are compelled to believe that I am that thing. Versus,
I'm a lamp. Go ahead.
right? But the initial stages of AI are obviously programmed by humans, and so they're going to exhibit the same kind of biases that humans have. But at the point which AI becomes self-aware, if it ever does, the idea would be that it would be able to sift through all of that pre-programming from humans and come to a certain universal idea of universal truth.
Yeah, I think it.
Right. And so at that point, do we do away with religion? Does that actually bring us together as people, or does that separate us even more? Because a lot of the separation that happens in human beings is because of the idea of subjective reality. Okay. If I believe that and this is everybody from fucking Timothy Leary back to Michel Foucault, this is it's like the lifeblood of new progressive Marxism, postmodernism, whatever you want to call it, many names. But my kind of hope with AI is that it will actually dissolve all that, and people will be free in a way to realize that yes, there is a certain universal truth that we can all believe in, and yes, just because. So I think about it in terms of I'm actually colorblind, right? So I can look. I'm red-green colorblind. If I look at a traffic light and I'm not so far gone that I can't see the difference between that red and green, but some people are.
Yeah.
And so I've become accustomed to know that the red's on top,
Yep. One,
the
two,
green's
three.
down.
green's
One,
on the
two,
bottom,
three.
right?
Yep.
First time I went to Ocean City, New Jersey, they are rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise.
Horizontal, yeah.
270. Yeah, it's the
I think so. Red is on the left and green is on the right.
Yeah, how about that? Holy shit. Didn't
So
think about that.
say I pulled into a town. I've never been outside of my town. All I ever knew was red on top, green on bottom.
Yeah.
I'm in this town now where red's left, green's right. Say I run a light and I'm involved in a fatal accident that kills someone. And my defense is my perception of that situation was that the light was green. That's my individual subjective truth, is that light was green. Do you think any judge in the
You're
country
going to
would
jail.
get me off of running a traffic light and killing someone?
Nope.
Because the actual truth was that the light was red.
Yeah. Yep.
My perception was off. It was my perception that was damaged. It was my perception that was not what it should have been. That was because of a deficiency in me, right? Not because of a deficiency in reality or truth. It was my subjective truth that the light was green. But the universal, the objective truth was that the light was red.
Well, I think what this really shows is more than there being an underlying order or a meaning or the ability to universally perceive, it shows us that the universe is complete fucking chaos. And we are desperate to apply organization to it. I had in one of my installations, a guy said, "Oh, is plant music like when you walk up to a tree and you see a face in the bark?" Now, so check this out.
Sorry.
No, it's fair. No.
That's fair. Yeah,
It's true.
I've seen faces.
Sure is.
Hopefully
We
they're
as
smiling
humans
ones.
are so desperate to recognize faces. So if I look up into the clouds and I see a face in the clouds,
Seen 'em.
and
I've
you
been there,
look up
yes,
and
I've
yeah,
seen
you
it,
see the
yes.
same face, is that not proof positive that there is verifiably a face in the clouds?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
It
I've
shows
seen
that
the
we are
face.
No, if you were a dog
desperate
and you
to
looked
organize.
at there, you would see a
sorry,
bone in
Sam,
the
go ahead.
cloud.
Yeah. So Norm, to your point, of course, and my comment here is kind of arbitrary because it's what the judge says that really matters in the end. But it's just that everything is in such chaos. This is why
It is.
your sense of vision in there.
But there are some universal truths. There are some objective truths.
It depends how it's
Like
measured.
you've seen the meme before where it's like it's a three-dimensional cylinder and there's a light shining on it from one direction and the shadow appears as a circle.
Yeah.
There's a light shining on it from the other direction and the shadow appears as a rectangle.
Yeah.
And one person's like, it's a circle. The other person is like, it's a rectangle. And I've seen people use this illustration to quote unquote prove that reality is subjective. It's the wrong interpretation of that. The correct interpretation of that is you're both wrong.
Yes.
It's not a circle. It's not a rectangle. It's a three-dimensional
It's a cylinder.
cylinder.
Yeah, two-dimensional projection is not going to give you the information you need to rationalize.
Right. So that's two people thinking about something in two dimensions when it's actually a three-dimensional thing.
and demanding that their perception and sense has verite, that they would be able to, assuming that we could even perceive
Right.
what that cylinder is from the shadow.
Right. And if you say, no, that's a circle, and if you think it's a rectangle, you're a horrible, evil person.
That's the challenge
You're
that we
a
face
hateful
today.
bigot
That
because you
reminds
think
me.
that's a rectangle and not a circle. That's where we are right now.
Yeah.
That reminds me of that like whole dress thing. What was the colors again? Was it blue or what?
Oh, the
Gold and blue.
Golden blue.
Yeah.
Gold and blue, yeah.
Yeah,
And
gold.
what was the audio one? The Yanni and
Oh,
Laurel?
Yep.
Wasn't that the one?
Yeah,
There,
Yanni
there
and
was there
Laurel.
was other ones, a bunch
Yeah.
of them that did that. Yeah.
What is yarn? I don't know that one.
Oh, there's
was-
audio ones where the same phrase is repeated. A lot of rock and roll songs do this too, where they'll say something that sounds like something
It
else.
was like
Right.
the audio version of the dress, where like if you've read the word and listened to it,
Yeah.
you heard
Hear
this
that.
thing. If you read the other word and listened to it, you
Just
heard it
as
that
I
way.
got you. Okay, yeah, I've been down there. Yeah, that's crazy.
Where are we at time-wise, JoJo?
We
We're
are
going
at
late, aren't we?
an
Yeah,
hour
it
and
seems-
12.
Yeah.
Longest episode so far.
It's a special.
That's what
guest.
editing's all
No,
about.
it's we have you're gonna have that other stuff earlier for me. Oh my god, I was failing earlier.
Well,
Yeah.
you got anything for Sam? You got
I
anything
just wanna
else you want
thank-
to?
I want to thank you, Sam, for showing up.
Thank you so much for having me,
absolutely
brother.
Love, like I'm fast. I was so excited when he told me you were coming because I was like, it's just nothing I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
But for you to be on this level is just like it's a higher level, and I love that you share it with everyone.
Well, I want to
think
bring
it's so
everybody
important.
to the level because
Yeah, it's just
nothing
like-
there's nothing secret here, and
Yeah.
nothing should be secret, right?
No,
and this is where our technology is constantly masking us from knowing what's going on. To know if there is an actual reality underneath it, but
Yeah.
only through sharing can we come to it. Can we combine the circle and the rectangle and understand that
Amen,
there's a
dude.
cylinder?
I
Yeah.
think it's really cool, because I feel this interaction alone. It's just like the you who would have thought that like you'd want to hear the plants make music and here we are, like you figured it out.
I want to hear you make music now. Can
Hey, let's
can
move
we
these
finally
tracks.
put these on Kenny?
Stop.
You want to bring it back up, Joe?
What are you sticking them at?
Yeah.
Which one is that? Is that 5/7 or
5/6.
5/6?
So what do I do?
So we're going to do something.
It hurts.
Give me your hand.
What? Stop. This is really happening? I think I'm dosed again. That's crazy. There you go.
So this is the electrical conductivity across the surface of our skin, and the more connectivity we have, the more conduction occurs.
Me, I'm making music with Sam. I never.
And changes are the key. Only when there's a change is there a musical note
Now, if
output.
I was to go over and hold both your
Pull my-
hands and
pull
go
my
through
finger.
all of us,
Technically, we could do a ring. I've seen 30 people in a ring.
Wow.
And the only thing where it doesn't work is if people are outdoors with bare feet, because then they're attached to the ground.
I was going to
Grounded,
ask
they're grounded.
grounding. Does that?
Wow.
Grounding is the worst thing for this system, and it's the hardest part with either the modular synth or anything that's plugged into the wall. Even USB power can really mess stuff up. Yeah, isolation's key. Come on over.
I think if I had my cheese curls down, it would totally mess up everything.
It probably would. It'd be playing Beethoven if you had your cheese curls down.
Oh, you're gonna do? Oh, yeah. Hold on, I'll do this. Should I do this side? Yeah, I'll do this side, and then I'll grab this hand. I haven't washed my hands in weeks. I'm joking. Wow, that's a trip, man. He's traveled. You've traveled. You've left the earth. You've definitely left the earth.
This is a good example of really why I built the device. So
It's a good example of something, yeah.
can try stuff out. You can have
I'm
different
absolutely
experiences.
Just, like mesmerized.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tell you
absolutely.
anything really about our bodies. It just tells you more about electricity.
Yeah.
And how currents flow.
And we conduct. We
It's
we
al-
conducted
it's
today.
almost-
Truly
it's
conduct.
a-
You
I
conducted. Yeah.
It works off the same
not
sense
leaving,
as
bro.
like when someone, you ever do this
Thank
with
you,
your
Sam.
buddies where like there's a electric fence and then one person grabs it
Peas on it?
and that too. But like
Don't
when
pick
you
on
have when your whole bunch of people are holding hands and you
For the record, Norm and I never did that kind of shit because his father's an engineer and taught us a little bit better than to touch an electric fence. I actually did without him with a couple other guys.
Nice.
We totally did that, where we all would form a line.
a line and then one person grabs it and then everyone gets shocked.
It was horrible. A friend that I won't name had his glasses blown off his face. It was
Well, we did that. Our seventh grade
Holy shit.
science teacher had a hand cranked generator in Mr.
P.
Damn it! What the hell was his name?
Yeah. Was it Mr. Dominic?
No, it wasn't
No,
Dominic.
no,
He was a
that's-
math teacher.
Yeah.
Anyway, seventh grade, and so somebody would stand inside the classroom and crank it like crazy, and then we'd make a chain of guys out the doorway into the hallway,
Oh,
and
you
just
guys-
would just wait for somebody to walk by. You just
Exactly.
grab them, and that person would get shocked.
A Van de Graaff generator.
Oh, so you were doing
Yeah.
you were doing potential energy. All your body's restored with potential energy, and you would discharge that energy into that
Wow.
person.
Yeah, a cat skin
more or
on
less.
on a glass rod, essentially.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
Was it Mr. Wizard? Was that one of the shows we grew up
Mr. Wizard. We
definitely
grew up with
Mr. Wizard. Yeah.
on?
Yep.
It just-
Now, he
I
would have had
haven't
Van de
thought
Graaff
of him
generators on
forever.
it. Yeah,
I haven't
totally.
thought of him forever, but this is what it reminds me of.
This is actually a good example
Yeah.
of something that would
Abs-
or
I'm-
could be on Mr. Wizard.
And what an amazing guy that never got
He
got
my-
Me Too'd, never got. I mean, could have very easily. It was like him and kids
Yeah.
and science experiments
You
very
gotta
easily
go
if
there,
he
don't
was.
you? You just had to go there. Why you move? You ruined my whole.
It's
Mr.
just
Wizard.
could have been so. You always hear all these some wholesome figures from our youth that we thought were so
We're not
wholesome.
talking
Like
about
Mr.
Jared
like
from
Mr.
Subway.
Rogers?
Turn
We're not
out to be
talking from Jared
Mr.
from
Rogers is
Subway.
another one who's still 100% wholesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
love Mr.
no,
Rogers.
it's
He
good.
changed
My
my
point
life.
is that
You ruined
I
it.
like to remember people like that, to
Mhm.
remember that there are still
Yeah.
good people and
I thought
were
you were
good
talking
people in the
shit.
world.
Bill
No, I'm
Nye?
not talking shit. I
love
love
Mr.
Mr. Wizard.
But
Wait.
you absolutely, I haven't thought of him forever, but that's what I feel like's going on right now.
Yeah.
You're our Sam is our wizard.
Sam, I would just
I
like
love
to
it.
say, like I've said
So
it in the
impressed.
past. I really like to think of things like in an outside like perspective and I like really evaluate what's going on before I make decisions on anything. I would just like to say that I can relate to a lot of things that you're talking about. I've never personally done them, but I like to say how intelligent you are, or how I'm perceiving you right now as intelligent. It's
Very
you know, and this
articulate.
is I like people that go off the track and do their own thing and really, you know, don't want to force it on anyone, but like completely dive into their own path. Like what you're doing right now, like you said, there isn't a lot of people. There is a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't. I don't want to say this in an insulting way, but this isn't the norm. This isn't the normal. You know what I mean? People, but like if we look back in history, like people that invent things or like, you know, make great inventions and whatever it may be, it's those people that want to go off the track.
Yeah,
and do
Sam's
these
making his
things.
own tracks. He's not even just off
Well,
some other
there's-
track. He's creating his own track.
Exactly, and like
And he's always done that.
like relating it to like technology or like the like cars or whatever it may be. It was that one person that went like, you know what? People may think this is dumb because like, oh, let's say use the car, like, oh, horse and buggies are never gonna, you know, that's our thing, that's what we're gonna do. And the next thing you know, some guy's like, I want to make a car, you know, or
We have a portable combustible fuel. We should be able to make this happen.
exactly. And like, and I won't say this, you know, in a sense, I don't know if this is ever one day going to take over mainstream music or whatever it may be.
I think what you're saying is this
hoping
will
I went on
destroy
Spotify.
popular music in this country.
I'm
Is that
hoping-
no? What
I
you're
get,
saying
like,
is
a
this is an
Spotify playlist?
anti-Taylor Swift device right here that Sam has created, and there will be no popular music in the future. All we're going to do is sit back and listen to music made by plants.
You know, but joking, all jokes aside, like situations like this is how we innovate and evolve.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and you know, I'm not. Who knows what this technology is going to be used for years down the road or centuries down the road? But just the fact that you're like, you know what, this is what I want to do, and you really want the science behind it, created it, and I also liked how you were talking about your, you know, a lot of the information you don't want to gatekeep. It's kind of like free flowing, and that's great because like when scientists, like you'll have 30 different scientists doing the same exact experiment, and then one person finds a difference, then the other 29 have to come together and reassess the entirety of thing, even though they've been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah, it's true.
On the same thing.
Yeah.
If that one person finds it, then those other 29 have to come back together and evaluate the whole thing. So for you to have your information open and flowing like that, it's great because it's going to make this science and this process evolve a lot faster.
I appreciate that, Joe. One of the cool things that is going on right now with all our, information communication technology, many of the movers and shakers in biodata, musicians and performers, we have like a WhatsApp chat group. And it seemed a little silly at first, but a bunch of people that were contacting me, I was like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we had a biodata consortium? So there's like 12 of us in the chat. But the neatest thing is someone will have an idea, or they'll ask a question, or they'll be doing a live performance, and they can just throw something in the chat. Then I'll respond like, oh, here's the technical what happens. And then someone else will say, oh, here, I've got some mushrooms that I've hooked up right now, and I've tried that. And we've got this like biodata users
Community.
social
Yeah.
network.
It's almost
got your-
like you have the brain of the operation, and you guys are all inputting the data into that singular brain, so that knowledge is.
We can share it with each
Infinite.
other. We can help each other with things. And luckily, because I've been interacting and I try to keep my tone and my message very consistent, many of the users have also picked that up. So if they don't know the answer to a question, instead of making it up, they refer back, or they'll say,
Right.
ask
Yeah.
Sam or
Just
something
find the
like that.
answer.
Yeah.
And if I don't know, I immediately say, well, I'm not a biologist. I don't know this. Like, I didn't know about the stome on the bottom of leaves until I did a lot of research and learned, until another biologist literally told me, oh, this is what's happening. Well, now you know.
Awesome. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You're
But
building with
it's-
your community. That community is beautiful.
It really is.
You
And
can
that's
get
what's
so
powerful.
much done. You can get so much done.
And
Love
also
it.
another
Well,
side
let's
of
wrap
it
it up,
too.
guys.
Yeah.
I want to keep talking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're wrapping it up. That's
Wrap
it.
it up, Joe.
We can bring Sam back again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll make some. Next time we'll attach it all to our butts and see what happens.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
Ass cheek to ass cheek, baby.
Yeah.
It can happen.
Episode 20.
All right, thanks, Sam.
Yep.
Thanks for being here. Oh, well,
Thank
hold
you,
on.
guys.
Before we go, we need to let people know where they can follow you,
Oh,
where they
yes.
can get in touch with you.
Thanks. Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. Electricity for Progress is the name of my main project, my educational electronics initiative. On YouTube as Electricity for Progress. I don't have any hardware
All
to sell.
together, Electricity,
Ele-
FOR progress.
Electricity, FOR progress. One big
Okay.
word. Yeah, I don't mess around with these short
Instagram,
abbreviations.
YouTube.
YouTube, and,
Is that it?
and my
And
website itself,
electricityforprogress.com.
.com. And
There you go.
GitHub. Reach out to me if you're trying to build something. Just build it on your own, and you don't know until you've experimented. So try it out.
There we go.
Awesome.
Thanks,
you,
buddy.
Sam. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
See ya. Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Awesome.
guys.
Peace.
Cheers.
You dig, Doug. That was good.
White guy.